Good morning, everybody. Thanks for being here. We're really excited this morning, and with us, we have our Mayor, London Breed, our District Attorney, Brooke Jenkins, our Sheriff, Paul Miyamoto, our Assistant Chief, David Lazar, our Acting Deputy Chief of Investigations, Rachel Moran, Acting Assistant Chief Pete Walsh, Commander Eric Ventero, and we have, let's see who we have on the end. I can see. Sergeant Bertrester and Deputy Staley from the Sheriff's Department. And the reason we're here as a team is to announce the progress that we've made on reducing homicides and gun-related violence in San Francisco over this past year. And you'll hear from everybody in a second, but it is a huge accomplishment. Before I go any further, let me say that we have many of the people in the room who were responsible for doing this work, both from the SFPD and our partnering departments, our California partnerships who helped us craft this strategy, and we have our community members who, without them, none of this would be possible. So I'm going to go into a little bit of detail before I turn the microphone over to Mayor Breed, because I am really excited about our progress. But it begins with our mayor, London Breed. You know, this strategy to reduce homicides and gun violence is not an accidental thing. You know, we hear oftentimes that, well, crime is going down across the nation and homicides and shootings are going down. This wasn't an accident. This was very strategic. This took years in the making, and we're going to describe basically what that entailed. But again, it starts with Mayor Breed. We're on track to have the lowest rates of homicides in over 60 years in San Francisco. And although one homicide is too many, and we always say that, and that is not just a cliche, we are pleased, very pleased with the progress we have made. Our shootings are down this year, our gun-related violence is down this year, and our homicides, specifically the firearms, are down significantly this year. And this, indeed, was a total team effort. Now, we know that the drivers of homicides are usually shootings. And in our city, like many other big cities, that has been the case for many, many years. Our strategy is a data-driven, evidence-based strategy. And basically, we wanted to get to the root causes of these shootings so we can drive them down, because we knew if we can do that, then we would drive our homicides down. The result, a 31% decrease in non-fatal shootings this year. Our homicide-related shootings this time last year were 10 more than we are this time this year. And on top of that, our homicide unit has an 88% clearance rate year to date. And this is after they've had a 80+% clearance rate all of last year. So there has been some phenomenal work across the board by the members of the SFPD and many other of our partnering agencies. I want to thank our entire Investigations Bureau for their tireless efforts and our specialized units who are working closely to capture some of the most dangerous and violent people in our city and in the Bay Area. These units include our Community Violence Reduction Team, who many are here today, our Crime Gun Investigation Center, our citywide plainclothes unit, our Technical Services Unit, also known as TSU, the officers assigned to our Drug Market Agency Coordination Center, also known as DMAC, our tactical unit, who oftentimes are called upon to serve warrants in some of the most dangerous conditions with some of the most dangerous people that we come across. And also, I'd like to thank every officer at every district station who put in the work day in and day out to keep our streets of our city safe from gun-related violence. As I said, you'll also hear soon from one of our partners, the California Partnership for Safe Communities. We have Ms. Reagan Cunningham here to speak on their behalf. And the California Partnership for Safe Communities have been involved in this work with us for almost 5 years now. And you know, this was due to Mayor Breed's leadership to get the seed money, basically, to engage in a contract with them to craft the very strategies that have us here today. As I said earlier, these strategies are data-driven, and we have done evaluations to prove that these strategies are part of the reason that we can stand before you today and talk about the reductions in gun-related homicides and homicides in general. We launched this work in District 10, which has seen a 50% reduction in homicides and shooting compared to last year, compared to the rest of the city. So I'd like to thank you to a few people that have made this happen in District 10. First of all, our policy and public affairs unit, and this is our non-sworn professional staff unit that is managing the violence reduction initiative work. They have been instrumental in making this happen. The mayor's street violence intervention program, which is also known as SVIP. These are people who aren't police officers. They are on the front lines day in and day out, and when shootings and homicides happen, they work with us from everything from rumor control to prevent retaliation to yellow tape protocols, as we call it, responding to crime scenes, making sure we can keep things peaceful, to hospital responses to make sure the families are supported and we don't have retaliation and violence at our hospitals. They play a crucial role, and they have been instrumental in the partnership to reduce this type of violence in our city. And I have to say thank you to our district attorney, Brooke Jenkins, and her team, because these cases, when arrests do happen, there's another part of this that you all know is critically important, and that's the prosecution of these cases. We want to see people held accountable. We want to see families get whatever closure they can get to see perpetrators held accountable, and that does not happen without the partnership of our district attorney and the district attorney's office. Lastly, let me say this in terms of what this is all about. You know, homicides and gun-related violence have a tremendous cost to our city and our society, not only in terms of the hurt that they cause to families and everybody associated with homicides and shootings, but also there's a real cost to the city. And there's been study after study that has estimated what it costs, a homicide, what does a life cost? And that ranges anywhere from the low 1 millions to up to 17 million in total for the cost of a homicide in our city. This time last year, we were at 50 homicides. Year to date, we have had 33 homicides. Now, let's do the math. Just this year alone, that's over a $20 million cost savings to society, just this year alone. But this work did not start this year. As I said, we've been working on this for several years, and other than the pandemic year, we've seen a steady decline in shootings and homicides in our city. So when we look at it just from that aspect, this work pays back tremendous dividends to our city. I want to thank everyone for attending today, and now I'd like to turn the microphone over to our Mayor, London Breed, for some comments.
Thank you, Chief. And first of all, let me start with expressing my heartfelt condolences to so many of the families, the moms like Paulette Brown and others who have lost their children to gun violence here in San Francisco and are still pushing for justice and wanting to see people held accountable, but more importantly, I know wanting to make sure that it doesn't happen in the first place. And the reason why I got involved in public life had everything to do with my experience growing up in San Francisco. In the midst of gun violence that destroyed my community, people who I loved have been killed, and sadly, they're not coming back. And I think that's something to understand when we're talking about this issue, because the loss of one life destroys a community, whether it's the family or the people who love them, the friends. I think about so many of the people over the years that we lost, wishing that they could not only be here, but be a part of the fabric of what makes San Francisco so special. And why so many of these programs were started. Initially, the SVIP was the CRN, the Community Response Network. It was a way to help combat a lot of the violent crime that was tearing the community apart, using people who were a part of the community, folks who went in these situations and risked their lives to help prevent retaliation in the first place. It has been an ongoing, challenging effort, and I am so grateful to have had the opportunity to help bring those teams of police officers and community-based organizations working together with a number of initiatives to start to get to the root of these problems so that, again, they never happen in the first place. That's what this was about. It wasn't about just a response to violence. It was making sure the violence doesn't happen in the first place. And you will read about in the newspapers when there is a shooting or a situation that occurs, you hear about those things loud and clear. But what you don't hear about are the phone calls that they make to Michael or others within the community asking for help, asking for support, the stuff that never happens because they are on the ground helping to prevent it and helping to steer that young person in the right direction. The reason why today is so significant, because it means that mothers and families and communities won't have to deal with those phone calls. They won't have to deal with running to San Francisco General hoping that their child is not lost to gun violence in this city. This is the work that I came in office to do. This is the work that I wanted to see happen, and this is why today is so significant, because it is so much incredible progress. And that progress happens when we work together. It happens because our San Francisco Police Department lead on these investigations. We have an almost 90% solve rate, clearance rate of homicides in this city, and it's about 50% throughout the entire country. We are leading the nation in using technology and using tools to help combat these issues. This was not happening many years ago when I was growing up. Going back to 1993, when we had 133 homicides, the year after I graduated from high school. It was a deadly time in this city, and it was something that we lived through for so many years. And the fact that we are in this place is amazing, and it's because we've worked together. It is because we focused on prevention, and when we provide solutions and when we work together, and when we give a damn, we see progress. That is what today means. Seeing violent crime decline in this city to the lowest number in over a decade, seeing our homicide rates decline lower than it's been since 1960, that is the work that we're doing here in San Francisco. That is how we are changing our city for the better. And when I think about change, I think about neighborhoods, not just Hunters Point, but Sunnydale. And I asked some of you to go visit Sunnydale and see what it is today. It was once a really horrible killing zone. I have friends who lost kids in that community, kids who grew up together, up the hill, down the hill, the violence and what was tearing communities apart. And what we have been able to do there, one of the first budget speeches that I made when I became mayor was a promise to transform that community working with community. And to go over there and to see the hub with kids, with teenagers, with families, with seniors, to see that we're going to be opening a grocery store and building units and creating community, working with community, and that people feel so much safer than they ever have before, especially people who grew up in that community. That is the work that we are doing, and that is the work that will continue. And speaking of the work that will continue, I am so glad that we have a district attorney that focuses on accountability. Now, here in San Francisco, we still believe in second chances and opportunities, and we are making significant investments in programs to support and uplift community. But when those lines are crossed, there has to be accountability. When I served as a member of the San Francisco Board of Supervisors, I remember when there was a quadruple homicide. I knew every kid that was killed. I know the mothers and the families of those kids. One of my friends who I grew up with and I played dolls with lost her only son. And just recently, our district attorney finally got a conviction, helping those families find a tad bit of peace in their struggle and their sorrow. So please welcome our district attorney, Brooke Jenkins.
Thank you, Mayor Breed, and thank you, Chief Scott. Thank you, Sheriff Miyamoto. Thank you to everybody up here who has been a tremendous partner to me over the last 2.5 years as we have endeavored to make a true difference on the streets of San Francisco. As a former homicide prosecutor, I was actually in the homicide unit prior to becoming the district attorney. I know firsthand what it means to hold the responsibility of trying to deliver justice to a family who is grieving, to a mother who has had to bury her child. And as a mother who's had to bury one of my own, there is no worse pain. And so every day we carry as a district attorney's office that responsibility to make sure that we don't leave families in a position where they have to carry that pain alone indefinitely and where they don't feel a need to get justice out on the street. And that's what often is unstated, that we contribute to a cycle of violence when we as law enforcement don't do our jobs. We have to take that seriously. And I was often condemned for my role in speaking out against my predecessor. But after the loss of one of my own family members on the streets of San Francisco, which came the day after a 6-year-old was killed in Bayview Hunters Point, it was important to elevate the voices of people who felt that they were having to hold the bag at the worst possible moment in their lives. And I know, as I sit across from so many mothers like Ms. Brown, who some days struggle to feel like they may never get justice. Mothers like who you just heard about in that quadruple homicide, who had to wait almost 10 years while that case languished in the court system, waiting to see accountability come to the killer of their sons. It's incumbent upon us to continue to move the ball forward. And I think today, while there's a celebratory tone, of course, we all know that we've still lost too many lives and we have to get that number to 0. But today is a testament that in comparison to last year, there are 17 fewer families who've had to bury their loved ones this year. There are 17 fewer mothers who are held up in bed feeling like they can't keep going. And so that's what's key here. I wanted to offer a few more stats because, of course, understanding that most importantly it's keeping the homicide rate down, it's also what we do after one happens. And in 2024, my office resolved 27 homicide cases with a 92% conviction rate. Of those 27 cases, 8 cases went to trial. All 8 resulted in a conviction, not including the one who we all know we're waiting on a deliberating jury, but we've gotten convictions in every single murder case we've tried this year so far. The numbers today are encouraging, that we're moving in the right direction, and that the bigger story, like I said, is the life-saving work that's happening through a partnership, through a critical partnership between community members, community organizations, and law enforcement. And that's not something that can be taken for granted because we know we're talking about communities that so often have trouble trusting law enforcement. And so what it takes for them to step up and be willing to work together with us is so important, and they need to be acknowledged. All of you need to be acknowledged for that. I also decided that it was critical for my office not just to be reactionary. We can't just come in after a murder happens, after violence happens. We have to work and make an investment to prevent violence. Just as you've heard, the mayor and the police chief have talked about from a citywide perspective. But I wanted my department to make a greater investment, and a part of that was starting a non-prosecutorial unit in my office, the Youth and Young Adult Services Unit, which is dedicated to intervention and prevention work with our youth, making sure that we are exposing them to career pathways, that we are supporting them and their families as they move through school and pushing them towards a brighter future rather than them feeling that they are only left to careers on the street. And so I just want to continue to push forward that work in my office. I'm so thankful to the staff in my office that dedicates so much of their time to uplifting our kids so that we don't have to see them spiral into the very behaviors and conduct that we're here talking about. I'm also very thankful to my victim services division, many of whom are here, who take on a lot of secondary trauma, working with families of victims who have been lost, and every day are working to help support them through oftentimes a very trying, delayed criminal justice system process, and helping them to keep the faith that we will get them the justice that they deserve. And so again, I'm just thankful to all the partners in this room. It does take dedicated homicide inspectors who oftentimes miss their families, they miss their kids' sporting games when these calls come out. And so I do want to just say thank you to them, because I know so many of them have made such investments in this work, even at the expense of their own personal lives. And to everybody who works hard to make sure that we continue to make this kind of progress. And hopefully next year we'll be saying the numbers even lower. And so now I want to pass it along to our dedicated Sheriff Paul Miyamoto, who has stepped up to make sure his department is a part of this partnership as well.
Good morning, everyone. I am very happy to be standing here with everyone up here and everyone out there, because, you know, having prepared remarks is one thing, but then actually seeing and feeling the room and feeling the moment is something very special, especially as we talk about this topic, especially as we talk about the successes we have and the work that's still to be done. It's not just about doing the work with everyone in this room, but it's about how we do the work. And I've been very fortunate in my career to see the dedication of the men and women of the Sheriff's Office, of the Police Department, of the District Attorney's Office, people in the community all working together in various stages. But this is the first time in my career over the past few years where that dedication, that commitment, that collaboration, and sense of community in the work that we do have resulted in these numbers, have resulted in what we're standing here before you today talking about. And I just wanted to say that it's made me very proud to be a part of that, knowing that the people have had that commitment and now are seeing the results of that commitment in the work that we do. I'm happy to say that although that there is a reduction on the streets, the individuals who we speak about that are being held accountable have to go someplace, and that place is usually in custody outside of the community, and we have to always focus not just on holding people accountable, but on trying to help people. I think somebody mentioned something about rehabilitation earlier, about second chances, and that's what we are also committed to here in public safety, and that's something that we cherish the partnerships with the community in trying to create a sense of rehabilitation and accountability in our system. When you look at the numbers, the only number that I see aren't the good numbers, it's the numbers of the work that we still have to do. Although we have a low count in our jail system right now, 360 of those individuals are members of security threat groups or gangs or whatever you want to label them as, individuals who need help, who need to be held accountable, and that's a part of our process. And we don't just appreciate the collaborations we have in public, and the formalization of a lot of those collaborations have resulted in our staff being a part of the police department's teams, the teams that were mentioned, our staff that actually are assigned in the jails, Sergeant Bergstresser, Deputy Staley here before you today, who are really happy to be standing here with all of us in front of you all, because of the work that they do within our system to get information, to share resources, and collaborate on keeping places safe, not just the streets, but inside with our in-custody population. I wanted to thank them for that personally today. And as we continue to talk about this, I want to also talk about our renewed commitment, our continuing commitment to making sure that we continue that collaboration, that we continue the coordination, that we continue our participation in DMAC and HSOC and CVRT, all the different acronyms that we have, all leads up to an alphabet soup of a renewed commitment, of a continuing commitment of all of our resources in keeping everybody safe. And I ask and plead that we continue that with the community as well. We're going to be celebrating something later for Paulette later this week, and I think that's reflective of the work that we still have to do, but also reflective of the good work that we've continued. And we can't do it without the community. I'd like to, at this time, bring Reagan Cunningham up here, as mentioned by the Chief, California Partnership for Safe Communities, and we can't do this work without the help of the community. So Reagan.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Reagan Cunningham, and I'm the co-director of the California Partnership for Safe Communities. And we've been providing technical assistance to the SFPD and their partners really since 2019 to implement the Violence Reduction Initiative. And so what technical assistance really means is we help the city to implement the VRI strategy. So since that time, we've been working with SFPD, their management team, adult probation, juvenile probation, community stakeholders, the sheriff's department, the DA's office, to implement VRI. And the goals of VRI are to reduce gun violence in the near term. This isn't the 30-year strategy. We want to reduce gun violence in the near term. We want to reduce the recidivism rate amongst participants. This isn't about sending everyone to jail. This is about ensuring that people are held accountable, as we spoke about earlier, and also ensuring that individuals who need a second chance get a real second chance. And the third goal of the strategy is to actually build community police trust. So this is about building trust with the community, not destroying it. Since full implementation, we have focused in District 10. And specifically, the neighborhoods of focus have been really disproportionately impacted by gun violence for many years. I'm talking about the Bayview, and I'm talking about Ingleside specifically. And one of the things that we've seen since implementation of this strategy is that we've seen a 50% reduction in gun homicides and non-fatal shootings, as mentioned earlier. That's actually larger than what we've seen citywide. So something is definitely happening that's positive in these neighborhoods. And I like to say it's not by accident, but it's by design. We were very intentional with our community partners, with SFPD, with probation, with the Sheriff's Department, with all of our partners about what do we need to do to make some real change in these neighborhoods. So through this collaboration, we've been able to focus on saving lives. And one of the things that I want to mention that hasn't been mentioned yet is I actually want to not just thank everyone up here and those folks who haven't been mentioned, but one of the individuals and people or populations I also want to thank are the young men in District 10 who made a decision to not engage in gun violence. It's because of their decisions that we're able to do this work and able to stand up here now, and that District 10 is safer than when we started. Thank you.
Thank you, Reagan. So as we close, I just want to reemphasize a couple of things. You know, all these strategies, they're working, but they don't work without the people doing the job. And those people, many of them are in this room, to my left, behind you, our homicide unit and all the units that I mentioned. Our real-time investigation center, which got off the ground this year, has been a tremendous, tremendous game-changing initiated unit for us. And their leadership, as well as the people that are actually operating out on the streets, are in this room, but also community, you know, groups like Brady and all the moms and uncles and aunts and cousins and sisters and brothers that are out there walking the streets with us, and the mayor and the DA, to raise awareness and get people engaged in this fight to reduce and end gun violence. It would not happen without all of you. So yes, strategies are good, planning is good, all that is needed, but it is the people that make things happen, and the people in this room. And I want to close by thanking all of the people that have gotten us to where we are now, but it's not over. We still have a lot of work to do, and we won't stop until we get this down to zero. So that work will go on for a lifetime. Thank you, and we'll open it up for a few questions.
Anything that's germane to what we're talking about here. If you have other questions, maybe we can talk about that off to the side. Christian?
Chief, yeah, thank you. The numbers show that our violent crime is trending down. How do you address the perception of the community? People may hear the numbers, but they still don't feel the numbers. How do you adjust for that? And how do you try to convince people and make sure people feel safe?
Well, part of it is doing things like this. We have to let people know what is actually happening out there. Look, I don't discount the way people are feeling, because the way people are feeling is based on their experiences, things that have happened to them or somebody that they know, and that's very, very real. However, the work is being done, and we have to continue to highlight and get the truth out there about the work that's being done. I mean, we can't, homicides is one of the few statistics that you really can't, we talk about unreported crime and people don't, homicides are reported. So, sorry about that. Homicides are reported. So we know that the work is being done. And what I'll say to people is like, look, we understand. We totally understand. Your experiences are what drives your perceptions. Your experiences are what drives what you feel every day, day in and day out. And we have to continue to work on that. But we do that by getting the information out there. We also do that by partnership. Ms. Cunningham mentioned one of our goals is to increase the trust in our communities as we do this work. Strategies of the past, we swooped in on a community and you saw cops everywhere and it wasn't always so community friendly. We're way past that now. So when we have people, like some of the people in this room, who reach out to the people most at risk, who are at risk of being shot or shooting, and reach out to their families and say, hey, we're here to help, but if you pull the trigger, we're gonna hold you accountable. That's very real, and that does build trust. And I think that does help people reduce their anxiety levels, that the police department is here to help and make things better, not to make things work. So we just got to continue to work at it, Christian. I know that's a long-winded answer, but it's a very complex thing, and it deserves the attention with a very thorough answer.
Can I add that?
Yes, absolutely.
I just want to add to that, because what the chief said is there's one thing to have this data, there's another thing to feel safe. And I think that one of the challenges that we have is when something happens, that's given a lot of media attention. It's all over social media, but when something good happens or when something is quite the opposite, no attention. Like, I'm still waiting for the press to go out to see Sunnydale and to go talk to the people who live there about their direct experiences, to talk to even the folks who are here from the Street Violence Intervention Program about what they stopped from happening. And those are just harder stories to sometimes get out, but the numbers don't lie. And we do have a lot more work to do around how we make people feel it. But ultimately, when you look at San Francisco over the decades, and you look at our violent crime rate and our crime rate overall, whether it's car break-ins or property crimes or violent crime or anything else, it is one of the lowest numbers we've seen in over a decade. And again, homicide since 1960. And more importantly, you look at other cities around this country, they pale in comparison. I think what we want to be able to do is send a strong message. And I think that the data is helping us to send that message. If you want to do something that impacts someone else's life in San Francisco, there is a law enforcement team of folks who will make sure that you are held accountable. And not to mention the technology that we have now with drones and surveillance and license plate readers, how we've recovered stolen vehicles, how we've been able to combat crimes like car break-ins and some of the things that we had difficulty in combating before. We have so many more tools, we have so much more support, and we are all working together. So get that message out. The message that you will be held accountable differently than ever before, and whether the press gets it out or not, I think the people who tend to take advantage of San Francisco, they're starting to notice a difference too, because when they do come here to commit crimes, they're being held accountable. And I also think that the young people growing up in these various neighborhoods are getting a lot more support, a lot more help, and resources to help change their lives. It's all works hand in hand, and it's all something we need to also elevate and talk about more than just reacting to something that happens.
Question? Congratulations, number one. America is watching you. And I'm pretty sure they're going to be calling on each and every one of you to implement your program. But to Sheriff Miyamoto, the Sheriff's Department has been behind the scenes on the block for many, many, many years, in contact with those that are incarcerated, collaborating with all of you, but you finally have gotten some recognition. How do you feel about that?
I feel what we have to put the spotlight on is exactly what we are putting the spotlight on right now, which is the collaborative work that everyone has done. And although we've been around for many, many years and will continue to be around for many, many years, this isn't a task for just one agency, one person, one organization. This is truly about community, and not just the community of our public safety partners, but the community in general. And as has been mentioned by every single person up here, representing all the different places, without that support across the board, without the support of the mayor's office, the overarching support of the city government, the support of our public safety partners, and bringing people into the process. As the chief mentioned, before, the old strategies of just coming in to a neighborhood and having a presence, it's not just about seeing uniforms. It's about the emotional connection that you have with the community, with people. And when we drill down to those basic strategies, as was mentioned by Reagan, it's not just about the work we do, it's about the decisions that people in the community make. And you see these kinds of results. I appreciate that you recognize that, AB, but it is a continuing group effort, and that's what we want to emphasize here. Although we've done good work, we want to continue that by continuing these partnerships.
We got time for one more question. Over here.
Hi, Chief Scott, Monica Madden, ABC 7 News. Mayor Breed touched on some of the other areas of crime where the numbers are trending down, specifically property crime and theft. Do you have any updated numbers on that? Unfortunately, the numbers I have right now are from 2021, and it still shows San Francisco having the third highest rate of property crime. So where are we in those efforts, and what other tools is the police department using to reduce those other areas of crime?
Yeah, the efforts are vastly improved from 2021. I mean, we have a 56% reduction in car break-ins. Now, let me give you some statistics on that. In 2017, at the end of 2017, we had over 31,000 car break-ins. We're now 3 weeks left in this year, and we have less than 10,000. That is a significant reduction. Now, we know that not all car break-ins are reported, but it was that way in 2017 as well. Property crime in general is down almost 30%, around 30%, which is very significant because property crime is our, year in and year out, our biggest categorical number in terms of statistics. But it's down across the board. Burglaries are down, robberies are down. Again, it's because of the people. It's because of the technology that the mayor has mentioned that we've been able to not only implement, but implement at a speed in which people that have been around here for a long time have never seen things get implemented as quickly with such a sense of urgency. That's great, but what's even greater is the people that you see in this room and the people out there in the field have put that technology to use and embraced it, and it is helping us solve crimes, catch people that we probably may not have ever caught without those technologies, without drones in the sky, without flock cameras. When somebody comes in the city, not only their license plate is being recorded and alerted, but the car itself. So when people try to outsmart us by changing license plates or putting on a stolen plate, these cameras help us vet through all that and catch people. So that type of technology has been a game changer. I keep using that word. And things are going in a really, really good direction for us. So we're really pleased with that. But again, fighting crime is humbling. And we won't stop until this continues to go down. And we have a city, as the mayor has mentioned, we want to rewrite our narrative in this city because we've taken some lumps, sometimes justified, sometimes not. We got to get the truth out there and show people what we're doing, show people the results, and that's going to help with the feeling of safety. Also, let me just add this: cops matter. We don't do the things that maybe we used to do in the way that we used to do them, but let's make no mistake about it. Cops matter. When people see cops in their neighborhoods, in uniform, patrolling the areas, engaging with the public, that also helps with the perception. But the work is being done, and the outcomes are You can't argue with the outcomes.
All right, last question.
I just want to thank all of you for your support. As I mentioned before, Chief Scott has been the most attentive to us mothers who've lost our children. I go to the police commission every Wednesday. I just thank God for them. I thank God that the crime and the homicides are down, so that now the focus can be focused on our children on unsolved homicide, bringing retired investigators to come back and solve these crimes for mothers like myself, so that the time that the crime is down, that now they can focus on us. So I just want to thank every one of you for coming out, all of you. I text you every morning, saying things, and I'm glad that the community is, we can bridge the gap between community and law enforcement. I want to continue to do that. As a mother who's lost her child to homicide, shot 30 times with a semi-automatic gun, saving someone else's life. My son didn't deserve to die. So me as his mother will continue, as well as there's other mothers out here, Sala, Maddie, all of us have lost our children, and I can't even name the names all of them. But we are here, and I'm representing them. And I need everyone to come out tomorrow to support us. And I just wanted to say thank you, London Bree, thank you, GA, thank all of you, the Lazar, all of you, Scott, thank you. Please don't stop what you're doing. Please.
Thank you, everybody. That will conclude the conference. We'll be around for additional questions.